My name is Beatrice Coleman, and I'm 72 years old. I raised my son Vincent by myself after my husband walked out when Vincent was just 6 months old. I worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, doing laundry during the day, and working weekends at a grocery store to make sure Vincent had everything he needed. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened at Vincent's wedding last Saturday when they tried to seat me in the back row of the church like I was a stranger. I'd arrived at the church 45 minutes early, wearing the cream-colored dress and matching jacket I'd saved for 8 months to buy. I wanted to look perfect for my son's wedding. I'd gotten my hair done at the salon, a rare treat, and I felt beautiful. The usher at the door was a young man I didn't recognize. One of the bride's cousins, probably. "Good morning," I said with a smile. "I'm the groom's mother." He looked at me, then down at his seating chart, then back at me with confusion in his eyes. "The groom's mother, are you sure?" "Am I sure I'm my own son's mother?" I tried to keep my voice pleasant. "Yes, I'm quite sure." He looked uncomfortable. "It's just, you're not on my list where I expected. Let me check something." He walked away, leaving me standing at the church entrance while other guests flowed past me. I watched as they were escorted to their seats, the bride's family on the left, looking elegant and wealthy in their designer clothes, the groom's colleagues and friends on the right. The usher returned with an older woman I recognized as the wedding planner. She had a tight smile on her face. "Mrs. Coleman, hello. There's been a small adjustment to the seating arrangements." "What kind of adjustment?" "Well, with the bride's family being quite large and needing to accommodate some very important guests on the groom's side, business associates of Vincent's, you understand, we've had to make some changes." "What does that have to do with me? I'm the mother of the groom. I sit in the front row. That's tradition." "Yes, well, about that." She glanced at her clipboard nervously. "The bride's mother felt that since Vincent's stepmother, I mean, Mrs. Harrison, has been in Vincent's life for the past 5 years since marrying his father. His father who abandoned us when Vincent was a baby. I don't know the family history. I'm just following the seating chart. Mrs. Harrison will be seated in the front row as the groom's mother, and we have a lovely seat for you in the back. Row 15. Very nice view, actually." The words hit me like a physical blow. Row 15. I'm being seated in row 15 while my ex-husband's new wife sits in the front row. "Mrs. Coleman, please keep your voice down. The ceremony is about to start." I raised Vincent alone for 32 years. I worked 3 jobs. I went without food so he could eat. I paid for his college. And you're seating me in the back while a woman who's known him for 5 years sits where I should be. Those were the instructions given to me. If you have an issue, you'll need to take it up with the bride or groom after the ceremony. Other guests were staring now. I felt my face burning with humiliation. "Where is Vincent? I want to talk to my son." "The groom is not to be disturbed before the ceremony. Now please, Mrs. Coleman, we need to seat you. The bride is arriving in 10 minutes. I looked toward the front of the church and saw him, my ex-husband Gerald, looking prosperous in an expensive suit, being escorted to the front row. And beside him, a blonde woman in her 40s wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His new wife, sitting in my seat. Something inside me broke, or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it finally became strong enough to say no. "I'm not sitting in the back." "Mrs. Coleman." "I'm not sitting in the back. I'm Vincent's mother. I deserve to be in the front row." "I understand you're upset, but these are the arrangements that have been made. If you cause a scene, I'll have to ask you to leave." I looked at this woman, this stranger who was following orders to humiliate me, and I made a decision. I didn't complain. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I simply turned around and walked out of the church. I sat in my car in the parking lot, crying, trying to decide what to do. Should I leave? Should I miss my own son's wedding because they'd tried to hide me in the back? But then I thought about something that made me dry my tears and check my purse to make sure it was still there. Because you see, I had something with me, something I'd planned to give Vincent at the reception. something that would change everything once people knew about it. And if they were going to treat me like I didn't matter, if they were going to seat my ex-husband's new wife in my place, if they were going to hide me in the back like a shameful secret, well, then I wasn't going to stay quiet. I was going to wait. I was going to let them have their perfect ceremony. I was going to let them seat that woman in my place. But when the time came, when the moment was right, I was going to show everyone exactly who I was and what I'd done for Vincent. I was going to reveal something that would make them all understand why seating me in the back was the biggest mistake they could have made. But before I tell you what I had in my purse, before I reveal what I did when I finally stopped staying quiet, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click it right now. Then smash that like button, because this story is about to show you what happens when people forget who sacrificed everything for them. Turn on those notifications, that bell icon, because you need to see what happened when I stopped complaining and started speaking up. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. What city, what state, what country? I want to know who's here with me today, because what I did at that wedding, what I revealed when I finally stopped being silent, it changed everything. For Vincent, for his new wife, for my ex-husband, for everyone. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how a mother who gave everything ended up being told to sit in the back at her own son's wedding. To understand what happened at that wedding, you need to understand my relationship with Vincent and how we got to this point. I met Gerald Coleman when I was 19 years old. He was charming, handsome, full of big dreams about the future. We got married when I was 21. I got pregnant right away. Vincent was born when I was 22. He was perfect, beautiful, the love of my life from the moment I held him. But Gerald wasn't ready to be a father. He was 23 and wanted to find himself and explore life, and all those other things young men say when they don't want responsibility. When Vincent was 6 months old, Gerald left, just walked out one day while I was at work. He left a note saying he couldn't handle being tied down, that he needed freedom, that he'd send money when he could. He never sent money, not once. I was 23 years old, alone with a baby, and terrified. My parents had died in a car accident when I was 18. That's why Gerald and I had gotten married so young, because I had no family left and needed someone. But now I had no one except Vincent, and I was determined to give him a good life. I got a job cleaning offices at night. I'd take Vincent with me, put him in a baby carrier, and clean while he slept. During the day, I did laundry for wealthy families. They'd drop off their clothes and I'd wash, iron, and fold them in my tiny apartment while watching Vincent. Weekends, I worked at a grocery store. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, would watch Vincent for a few dollars an hour. I made enough to pay rent, buy food, keep the lights on. Barely, but we survived. As Vincent grew, I worked harder. I wanted him to have what other kids had. When he needed school supplies, I'd skip meals to buy them. When he wanted to join Little League, I took on extra laundry clients to pay for the uniform and equipment. I was there for everything, every baseball game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every award ceremony. I might have been exhausted working 3 jobs, but I showed up. Gerald, he vanished completely. No calls, no letters, no birthday cards, nothing. For years, Vincent would ask about his father, and I'd say, "Daddy had to go away, but Mama's here. Mama will always be here." When Vincent was 8, Gerald showed up out of nowhere. He'd gotten married to a woman with money. He wanted to reconnect with his son. I was so angry. You've been gone for 8 years. You've never sent a single dollar. You've never called. And now you want to waltz back into his life. I made mistakes. I was young, but I'm ready to be a father now. You should have been ready 8 years ago when your son needed you. Gerald tried to establish visitation. He took me to court, but the judge wasn't impressed with a father who'd abandoned his child for 8 years and never paid support. Mr. Coleman, you have no legal standing here. You've provided nothing for this child. Mrs. Coleman has been both mother and father. If you want a relationship with your son, you'll need to earn it. And that starts with paying child support for the 8 years you've missed. Gerald disappeared again. Apparently, paying for his abandonment wasn't part of his plan for reconnecting. I raised Vincent alone, through middle school, through high school, through the awkward teenage years when he asked hard questions about why his father didn't want him. It's not that he doesn't want you, baby. It's that he doesn't know how to be a good father, but you have me, and I want you more than anything in the world. When Vincent graduated high school with honors, I cried with pride. He'd gotten a partial scholarship to college, but it wasn't enough to cover everything. I took out loans. I worked extra hours. I made it happen. Vincent went to college. During his sophomore year, Gerald showed up again. He'd gotten even wealthier. His wife had died, leaving him money, and he wanted to make amends with Vincent. Vincent was 19 and curious about his father. I didn't try to stop him. You're old enough to make your own choices. Just remember, I've been here all along. He's the one who left. Gerald showered Vincent with gifts, expensive dinners, a new car, promises of help with tuition, all the things I couldn't afford to give. And slowly, I watched my son start to drift toward the father who'd abandoned him and away from the mother who'd sacrificed everything. Mom, Dad said he'd pay off my student loans if I come work for his company after graduation. That's generous of him. He feels really bad about leaving. He wants to make it up to me. Vincent, money can't buy back the years he missed. It can't replace all the times you cried asking why your daddy didn't love you. He does love me. He was just young and stupid back then. People can change. Some people change. Some people just get richer and try to buy forgiveness. But Vincent didn't want to hear it. He was seduced by Gerald's wealth, by the promise of an easy life, by the father figure he'd always wanted. After college, Vincent went to work for Gerald's investment firm. He became successful, started making good money, moved into a nice apartment. And he started seeing me less and less. Sorry, Mom, can't make dinner this Sunday. Dad's having a business thing. Sorry, Mom, I can't help you move. Dad and I are going golfing. Sorry, Mom, I won't make it for your birthday. Dad's introducing me to some important clients. It hurt, but I told myself it was temporary, that Vincent would remember who'd been there all along. That blood would tell. When Vincent was 28, Gerald married again. A woman named Sylvia Harrison. She was 45, wealthy in her own right, sophisticated, everything I wasn't. Vincent loved her immediately. Mom, Sylvia is amazing. She's so elegant. She's taught me so much about art and culture and fine dining. That's nice, sweetheart. She said I should call her my stepmother, that she wants to be a real mother figure to me. Those words cut deep. You already have a mother. I know, Mom, but you know what I mean. Sylvia can teach me things you never could, things about high society, about being successful. I taught you about working hard, about integrity, about surviving when life is difficult. Aren't those things valuable? Of course they are, but Mom, I'm in a different world now, Dad's world, and I need to fit in. I watched my son become someone I barely recognized. He started dressing differently, talking differently. He joined a country club, started going to charity galas and society events. And he started being embarrassed by me. When I'd visit his apartment, he'd make excuses about why we had to eat there instead of going out. I'm just tired, Mom. Let's order in. But I knew the truth. He didn't want to be seen in public with his mother who wore discount store clothes and didn't know which fork to use at fancy restaurants. When Vincent got engaged last year, I was happy for him. His fiancée, Natasha, came from money, old money. Her family owned hotels. She was beautiful, educated, polished. At the engagement party, I felt completely out of place. Everyone was wealthy and sophisticated. I wore my best dress, a simple floral print from Walmart, and felt like a stain on their elegant gathering. Natasha's mother, Lorraine, barely acknowledged me. Oh, you're Vincent's mother. How nice. Vincent speaks so fondly of his stepmother, Sylvia. She's here somewhere. Have you met her? I've heard of her, but no, we haven't met. She's wonderful, so refined. She's been such a good influence on Vincent. The implication was clear. Unlike you. I met Sylvia that night. She was everything I wasn't: tall, thin, blonde, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She smiled at me with polite coldness. "Beatrice, so nice to finally meet you. Vincent has told me about you." "Good things, I hope." "Of course. He's very grateful for everything you did for him when he was young, before Gerald came back into his life and gave him opportunities." The words were pleasant, but the message was brutal. "Your part is over. We're his family now." Over the next year of wedding planning, I was systematically excluded from everything. Mom, Natasha, and Sylvia are handling all the planning. They have very specific tastes. I'd like to help somehow, maybe with the rehearsal dinner. Dad and Sylvia are already handling that. What about the guest list? I have some friends I'd like to invite. Mom, the wedding is already at 250 people. We can't add more. Besides, your friends wouldn't really fit in with Natasha's crowd. Fit in? Vincent, these are people who have known you since you were a baby. I know, Mom, but this wedding is important. For Natasha's family, for Dad's business connections, we need to make the right impression. And I don't make the right impression. I didn't say that. You're just different from the people who will be there. Different, that was the word he used. Not poor, not working class, not an embarrassment, just different. 3 months before the wedding, I asked about my role in the ceremony. Will I be escorted down the aisle? That's traditional. The mother of the groom gets escorted to her seat. Yeah, about that. Sylvia is going to be seated as the groom's mother. She's married to Dad, so technically she is my stepmother. But I'm your mother, your actual mother. I know, Mom, but Sylvia is going to sit in the front row with Dad. It just makes sense. Where will I sit? We'll find you a good seat, don't worry. But I did worry, because I could feel myself being pushed aside, being replaced by a woman who'd known Vincent for 5 years while I'd raised him for 32. 2 weeks before the wedding, the invitation arrived. It was beautiful, thick cardstock with gold embossing, but when I read it, I felt sick. Mr. Gerald Coleman and Mrs. Sylvia Harrison Coleman request the honor of your presence at the marriage of Gerald's son Vincent Coleman to Miss Natasha Ashford. Not Beatrice Coleman's son, not son of Beatrice and Gerald Coleman, just Gerald's son. I'd been erased from my own son's wedding invitation. I called Vincent. The invitation doesn't mention me. Mom, it's just the formal wording. It doesn't mean anything. It means I don't exist. It means you're pretending your father raised you alone. That's not what it means. The bride's parents traditionally host, and since Dad is paying for most of the wedding. Dad, you call him Dad now, the man who abandoned you. He's made up for it. He's been there for me these past years. I've been there for you your whole life. I know, Mom, and I appreciate it, but can you please not make this difficult? The wedding is in 2 weeks. Everything is planned. Please just be happy for me. I am happy for you. I just want to be acknowledged. I just want people to know I'm your mother. They know. Everyone knows. You don't need to be on the invitation for people to know. But that wasn't true, because people didn't know. At the engagement party, at the rehearsal dinner, at every pre-wedding event, I was invisible. A random woman in cheap clothes who nobody bothered to talk to. And now, at the actual wedding, they'd tried to seat me in the back, row 15, like I was a distant relative nobody cared about. That's when I'd walked out. That's when I'd sat in my car and cried. That's when I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to complain. I wasn't going to argue about seating arrangements. I was going to wait. Because in my purse, I had something. Something that would prove exactly who I was and what I'd done for Vincent. Something that would make them all sorry they'd treated me like I didn't matter. I took it out and looked at it. The documents I'd brought to give Vincent privately at the reception. But now, I had a different plan for them. I was going to stay quiet. I was going to let them have their perfect ceremony with Sylvia sitting in my seat. But when the right moment came, and I'd know when it came, I was going to show everyone the truth. And they weren't going to like it. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching guests arrive at the church. They were all so elegant, so wealthy, so comfortable in their expensive clothes and luxury cars. This was Vincent's world now, a world I didn't belong to. But I'd raised him. That had to count for something. I dried my tears, fixed my makeup in the rearview mirror, and made a decision. I was going to attend my son's wedding, not in the back row where they'd tried to hide me, but on my own terms. I waited until the ceremony had started. I could hear the music from the parking lot, the processional beginning. They'd be seating the mothers now. Sylvia would be walking down that aisle, taking my place in the front row. Let her have it, for now. I slipped into the church through a side door. The sanctuary was full, 250 guests, just like Vincent had said. The ceremony had just begun. Everyone was focused on the front where Vincent stood at the altar looking nervous and handsome in his tuxedo. I found an empty seat in the very last row, tucked in the corner where no one would notice me. From here, I could see everything. I could see Sylvia sitting in the front row next to Gerald, wearing a lavender designer suit, looking every bit the proud mother. I could see Natasha's family on the other side, her mother Lorraine looking regal, her father Preston looking distinguished. And I could see Vincent, standing at the altar, waiting for his bride. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional, expensive. Everything was perfect, from the white roses to the string quartet to the way Natasha looked like a princess in her wedding gown. But something happened during the vows that made my heart ache. The officiant asked Vincent, "Who has supported you and loved you to bring you to this moment?" It was a modern addition to the ceremony, a chance to acknowledge the people who'd helped shape the couple. Vincent looked at his father. My dad, who showed me what success looks like, my stepmother Sylvia, who taught me about culture and refinement, and Natasha's parents, who welcomed me into their family. Not one word about me. The woman who'd raised him alone. The woman who'd worked 3 jobs. The woman who'd sacrificed everything. I felt tears running down my face, but I stayed quiet. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there in the back row, invisible, while my son thanked everyone except me. The ceremony ended. Vincent and Natasha kissed. Everyone applauded. The bride and groom walked back down the aisle, followed by the wedding party. As they passed my row, Vincent glanced my way. For just a second, our eyes met. He looked surprised and guilty. He'd seen me. He knew I was there, but he kept walking. After the ceremony, I followed the crowd to the reception at the Grand Bellevue Hotel. It was the most expensive hotel in the city. The ballroom was decorated with thousands of white flowers, crystal chandeliers, gold everything. This wedding had cost a fortune. Gerald's fortune, not mine. I found my name card at the seating chart. Table 18. In the back corner, far from the head table where Vincent and Natasha would sit, far from the family tables. At my table were people I didn't know. Distant relatives of Natasha's, maybe, or business acquaintances. They barely acknowledged me when I sat down. "Are you with the bride or groom?" one woman asked politely. "The groom. I'm Vincent's mother." She looked confused. "Oh, I thought that woman in the lavender suit was his mother, the one sitting at table 2. "That's his stepmother. I'm his actual mother. I raised him." "How interesting." She clearly didn't believe me, or didn't care. She turned back to her conversation with the others at the table. I sat there through the cocktail hour, through the grand entrance of the bride and groom, through the first dance, watching my son celebrate with people who barely knew him while I remained invisible in the corner. Then came the toasts. Natasha's father, Preston, went first. He talked about his daughter, about how happy he was to welcome Vincent into their family, about the bright future ahead. Then Gerald stood up, my ex-husband, the man who'd abandoned his infant son. "I want to talk about my son Vincent," he began, and my hands clenched into fists under the table. When Vincent came to work for my company 10 years ago, I was so proud. Watching him grow into the successful man he is today has been one of my greatest joys. 10 years ago, He'd been in Vincent's life for 10 years and was acting like he'd raised him. Vincent has my work ethic, my business sense, my drive. I like to think I taught him those things. And with Sylvia's help these past 5 years, we've shaped him into a man any parent would be proud of. The room applauded. Gerald raised his glass. To Vincent and Natasha, may your marriage be as successful as the partnerships we build in business. I felt sick. He was taking credit for everything, for Vincent's success, for his character, for who he'd become, and everyone was applauding him for it. Then Sylvia stood up. She wanted to make a toast too. I know I've only been in Vincent's life for 5 years, she said with false modesty, but he's become like a son to me. Teaching him about art, about culture, about the finer things in life, it's been such a pleasure. Vincent, I'm so proud of the refined, sophisticated man you've become. More applause, more praise for the people who'd barely been there. Vincent stood up next. I want to thank everyone who's here today, especially my dad and Sylvia, who have given me so many opportunities. Dad, thank you for teaching me about business and success. Sylvia, thank you for teaching me about culture and elegance. And to my beautiful wife Natasha and her parents, thank you for welcoming me into your family. Still nothing about me, not one word. That's when I knew it was time. Time to stop being silent. Time to stop being invisible. I stood up. The movement caught people's attention. Heads turned to look at the woman in the back corner who was standing up during the toasts. Excuse me, I said, my voice carrying across the ballroom. I'd like to say something. Vincent's face went pale. Gerald looked confused. Sylvia looked annoyed. Natasha looked horrified. The MC, unsure what to do, handed me a microphone. And you are? I'm Beatrice Coleman, Vincent's mother. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People looked between me and Sylvia, confused about who was telling the truth. I've been sitting here listening to all these beautiful toasts, I continued, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. Listening to people talk about who shaped Vincent into the man he is today, and I noticed something. Nobody mentioned the first 32 years of his life, the years before his father came back, the years before Sylvia entered the picture, the years when it was just Vincent and me. Mom, please, Vincent started, but I kept going. When Vincent's father walked out on us, Vincent was 6 months old. For the next 8 years, Gerald sent no money, made no calls, wrote no letters. He completely abandoned his son. Gerald stood up. Now wait just a minute. Sit down, Gerald. I've been quiet for 32 years. It's my turn to talk. The room was completely silent now. Every guest was watching. I raised Vincent alone. I worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, doing laundry during the day, working weekends at a grocery store. I went without meals so Vincent could eat. I wore the same clothes for years so Vincent could have new school supplies. I took out loans I'm still paying off so Vincent could go to college. I looked at my son. I was there for everything, Vincent. Every baseball game, every school play. Every time you were sick or scared or needed someone, I was there. Mom, I know. Do you? Because you just thanked your father for teaching you about success. The father who abandoned you. You thanked Sylvia for teaching you about culture. A woman who's known you for 5 years. But you didn't mention the mother who raised you for 32 years. The mother who sacrificed everything for you. Natasha stood up. Mrs. Coleman, this is our wedding day. This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is seating me in the back row at my own son's wedding. What's inappropriate is putting another woman's name on the invitation as Vincent's mother when I'm the one who raised him. What's inappropriate is erasing me like I never existed. I reached into my purse and pulled out the documents I'd brought. The reason I'd come prepared. The reason I knew they'd regret treating me this way. I brought something with me today. Something I was planning to give Vincent privately. But since we're sharing family history, I think everyone should see this. I held up the first document. This is Vincent's birth certificate. See that line where it says father? It's blank, because Gerald wasn't there when Vincent was born. He was too busy finding himself to show up for his son's birth. Gerald's face turned red. People at the front tables were whispering. I held up another document. This is a court order from when Vincent was 8 years old. Gerald tried to get visitation rights. The judge denied him because he'd never paid a single dollar in child support, never even called to check if his son was alive. "That's private," Gerald shouted. "You have no right." "I have every right. These are documents about my son. My son that I raised alone while you were living your best life with your first wife's money." I pulled out another stack of papers. "These are receipts for Vincent's clothes, his school supplies, his little league uniform, his field trips, his SAT prep course, his college application fees, every single expense for the first 18 years of his life, all paid by me. Not one receipt has Gerald's name on it." The crowd was murmuring loudly now. This perfect wedding was falling apart. "And these," I held up a thick stack of papers, "are the student loan documents. $127,000 in loans I took out so Vincent could go to college. I'm 72 years old and I'm still making payments on these loans. Because that's what real parents do. They sacrifice. They put their children first. They don't abandon them and then show up years later claiming credit for how they turned out." Vincent had tears running down his face. "Mom, please stop." "Why? Because I'm embarrassing you. Because your new family and your wealthy in-laws are seeing the truth about where you came from, about who actually raised you. You're ruining my wedding." "No, Vincent. You ruined it when you tried to erase me. When you let these people convince you that I wasn't good enough to sit in the front row at your wedding. When you stood up there and thanked everyone except the woman who actually raised you." Sylvia spoke up, her voice icy. "This is completely classless. Beatrice, you're making a fool of yourself." "Classless? You're calling me classless? I worked 3 jobs to raise a child. You married a rich man and bought yourself a ready-made son to play stepmother to. Don't you dare talk to me about class." I looked at Vincent one more time. "I brought something else with me today, something I was going to give you as a wedding present." I pulled out a final envelope. "This is the deed to my house. The house I've lived in for 40 years, the house where I raised you. I was going to sign it over to you today. Give you a real asset to start your marriage with, but I've changed my mind." "Mom." "Because you know what I realized, sitting in the back row of this wedding? You don't need my house. You don't need anything from me. Your father has money. Your stepmother has money. Your wife's family has money. You have everything you need from everyone except me. So I'm going to keep my house. I'm going to sell it, actually. And I'm going to use that money to pay off the student loans I took out for you. The loans you never offered to help with, even after you started making 6 figures at your father's company." Vincent looked devastated. "I didn't know you were still paying them off, I thought." "You thought they just magically disappeared. No, Vincent. I've been making payments for 14 years. $847 a month, every month. While you've been living in your luxury apartment and joining country clubs and forgetting where you came from." I turned to address the whole room. I came to this wedding hoping to be acknowledged, hoping my son would remember who raised him. But instead, I was hidden in the back like a shameful secret while people who barely know him took credit for the man he became. So I'm done being invisible. I'm done being quiet. Everyone in this room now knows the truth. Vincent Coleman was raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs and sacrificed everything for him. Not by the father who abandoned him or the stepmother who showed up when he was already an adult. Me, I raised him, and I'm done pretending otherwise. I set the microphone down and started walking toward the exit. The ballroom erupted. People were talking loudly. Some were defending me. Some were criticizing me for making a scene. Some were just shocked. I heard Vincent calling after me. Mom, wait, please." But I didn't stop. I walked out of that ballroom with my head held high. I'd been silent for 32 years. I'd let them push me aside, hide me in corners, erase me from invitations. But not anymore. I'd finally spoken up. I'd finally demanded to be seen. And there was no going back. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I made it to the hotel lobby before Vincent caught up with me. Mom, please stop." I turned around. My son was standing there in his tuxedo, tears streaming down his face, looking more like the little boy I'd raised than the sophisticated man he'd tried to become. "What do you want, Vincent?" "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, for everything. For the seeding, for not mentioning you in my vows, for all of it." "Are you sorry? Or are you just embarrassed that I exposed the truth in front of all your important guests?" "I'm sorry because you're right. About everything. I did forget who raised me. I did let Dad and Sylvia take credit for things they didn't do. I did try to hide you because I was ashamed." "Ashamed of what? Ashamed of me?" "Ashamed of where I came from, of being poor, of having a mother who cleaned offices and did other people's laundry. Natasha's family is so wealthy, so sophisticated, and Dad and Sylvia fit into that world perfectly. But you," he stopped. "But I don't fit. Is that what you were going to say?" "You don't understand what it's like, being around Natasha's family. Her father owns hotels. Her mother sits on charity boards. Everyone has money and status and connections. And when they ask about my family, I didn't want to say my mom works 3 jobs just to survive." "So you erased me. You let them think your father raised you. You let Sylvia play mother." "I was wrong. I see that now. Mom, watching you walk out of my wedding, watching you finally stand up for yourself, it made me realize what I've done. I've been a terrible son." "Yes, you have." He flinched at my honesty. "Can you forgive me?" "I don't know, Vincent. Can I? You tried to hide me at your own wedding. You thanked everyone except me. You've spent the past 10 years pulling away from me and getting closer to a father who abandoned you and a stepmother who's only been around for 5 years." "I know, and I hate myself for it, but Mom, I love you. I've always loved you. I just got caught up in money, in status, in fitting into a world where people like me don't belong." "Yes, all of that. I became someone I'm not proud of." "So what now? Do you go back to your reception and pretend this didn't happen? Do you tell your guests I'm just a crazy woman who made a scene?" "No, I'm going to tell them the truth, the whole truth, about how you raised me, about Dad abandoning us, about everything." "Will you, though? Or will you just smooth things over and go back to being embarrassed by me?" Before Vincent could answer, Gerald appeared, looking furious. "Beatrice, what the hell was that? You just humiliated our family in front of 250 people." "Our family? Since when is Vincent our family? You abandoned him 32 years ago." "I made mistakes, but I've made up for them." "With money? You think money makes up for abandoning your infant son, for missing his entire childhood, for never sending a single dollar when we were struggling to survive?" "I'm here now. I've been here for 10 years. I've given Vincent opportunities you never could have given him. Because I was too busy actually raising him. While you were off living your life, I was working 3 jobs. I was the one at his baseball games. I was the one helping with homework. I was the one holding him when he cried because his daddy didn't love him." Gerald's face was red. "Vincent turned out fine. He's successful, wealthy, respected." "What does it matter? Who was there for what part of his life?" "It matters because you're taking credit for my work. You're acting like you raised him when all you did was show up after the hard part was over and throw money at him. Money that gave him opportunities. That I could have given him if you'd paid child support, if you'd done your legal duty as a father. Gerald, you owed me $273,000 in child support based on your income. You never paid a cent. And now you're acting like you're father of the year because you bought him a car and gave him a job." Sylvia had joined us now, looking annoyed. "Beatrice, this is beneath you. You're making yourself look desperate and bitter." "Bitter? You're calling me bitter? Sylvia, you've known Vincent for 5 years. 5 years. I raised him for 32 years. And you have the audacity to call yourself his mother at his wedding." "I never called myself his mother. I said I was his stepmother." "You sat in the mother of the groom seat. You accepted congratulations for raising him. You took credit for teaching him about culture and refinement, when all you did was take him to a few art galleries and teach him which fork to use. Someone had to teach him those things. You certainly weren't equipped to." "To what? To teach him about high society? You're right. I wasn't. Because I was too busy teaching him about hard work and integrity and not abandoning people who depend on you. Natasha appeared, still in her wedding gown, looking distressed. Can you all please stop? You're ruining our wedding day. I'm not ruining anything, I said calmly. I'm just finally telling the truth after being silenced for 32 years. But why today? Why at our wedding? Why couldn't you just sit quietly and let us have our day? Because today was the day you tried to erase me completely. Sitting me in the back, putting Sylvia in my seat, not mentioning me anywhere, that was your choice. I just responded to it. We were trying to keep things elegant, simple. We didn't want drama. Then you shouldn't have treated Vincent's mother like she was nobody. You created this drama, Natasha, not me. A hotel manager approached nervously. Excuse me, but we're receiving complaints from other guests. Could you please take this conversation somewhere private? Gladly, I said. I was leaving anyway. Mom, please don't go, Vincent said desperately. Come back to the reception. We'll fix this. I'll make an announcement. I'll tell everyone the truth about who raised me. It's too late for that, Vincent. The damage is done. You've already shown everyone who you value and who you don't. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Vincent, I gave you everything. And you've been pulling away from me for 10 years because I'm not sophisticated enough for your new life. Because I embarrass you. Because I'm a reminder of being poor. I never said you embarrassed me. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every time you made excuses why we couldn't meet in public. Every time you avoided inviting me to events. Every time you chose Dad and Sylvia over me. Gerald spoke up again. Vincent has the right to choose who he wants in his life. He's my son. I raised him. And you? I turned to face Gerald fully. You have no rights here. None. You abandoned him. You forfeited your rights as a father. And the fact that you're standing here acting like you have any say in Vincent's relationship with me is laughable. I'm his father. Biologically, that's all. You're a sperm donor who showed up 3 decades later with money. You're not a father. Fathers are there. Fathers sacrifice. Fathers don't abandon their infant sons. Sylvia tried again. Beatrice, I understand you're upset, but you're being unfair to Gerald. He's made amends. He's been wonderful to Vincent. For 10 years, out of 32. That's less than a third of Vincent's life. And you've been around for 5 years. That's 1/6 of his life. Yet you two are sitting in the front row while I'm hidden in the back. You're both acting like you raised him when you barely know him. We know him now. You know the successful, polished version of him. The version that fits into your world. I know the real Vincent. The boy who was scared of the dark. The teenager who cried over his first heartbreak. The young man who worked 2 jobs to help pay for college even though I told him to focus on school. That's my son, not the country club member who's embarrassed by his mother. Vincent was sobbing now. I'm not embarrassed by you. I'm ashamed of myself for treating you this way, for letting them treat you this way. Then why did you do it? Why did you let them seat me in the back? Why didn't you mention me in your vows? Why didn't you fight for me? Because I'm weak. Because I wanted to fit in. Because I thought if I could just be successful enough, wealthy enough, sophisticated enough, I could forget about being poor, about struggling, about me, about how hard things were. And you reminded me of that. Every time I saw you, I remembered living in a tiny apartment and eating ramen for dinner and wearing second-hand clothes. And I wanted to forget all that. So you tried to forget me too. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who'd become someone I barely recognized, and felt a mix of love and disappointment and heartbreak. I need time, Vincent. Time to think about whether I can forgive this, whether I can have a relationship with someone who's ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed of you. Yes, you are. You just admitted it. And I can't be in your life if that's how you feel. I can't keep being pushed aside and hidden away and treated like I'm less important than people who have barely been in your life. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm going home, and you need to decide what kind of man you want to be. The kind who honors his mother, or the kind who's embarrassed by where he came from. I turned to leave again. This time, Vincent didn't follow me. He just stood there, crying, while Gerald and Sylvia and Natasha tried to comfort him. I walked out of the hotel and got into my car, and I cried, because I'd finally stood up for myself, but it had cost me my relationship with my son. When I got home, my phone was ringing. I ignored it. It rang 30 more times over the next hour. Vincent, Gerald, Sylvia, even Natasha, all calling to try to convince me to come back, to apologize, to smooth things over. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called my realtor. "Hi, Sharon. I'm ready to list my house as soon as possible." "Are you sure, Beatrice? This is a big decision." "I'm sure. I want to sell it and use the money to pay off my student loans. The ones I took out for my son who doesn't appreciate what I sacrificed for him." 2 days later, my house was on the market. It sold in a week for $340,000. After paying off the remaining $89,000 in student loans, I had $251,000 left. I moved into a small apartment, used some of the money to furnish it nicely, put the rest in savings. And I waited to see if Vincent would reach out. He did, 3 weeks after the wedding. "Mom, can we talk, please? I've been thinking about everything you said, about everything I've done. And you're right, about all of it. I've been a terrible son. I've been ashamed of you when I should have been proud. I've let Dad and Sylvia take credit for raising me when you're the one who actually did all the work, and I'm sorry." "I appreciate the apology, Vincent, but apologies don't undo hurt." "I know. That's why I want to make it right, really right, not just with words but with actions." "What kind of actions?" "I told Natasha's parents the truth, the whole truth, about Dad abandoning us, about you raising me alone, about the 3 jobs and the sacrifices and everything. They were horrified by how I'd treated you." "I'm sure they were." "And I told Dad and Sylvia that they don't get to take credit for raising me anymore, that if they want to be part of my life, they need to acknowledge what you did, how you were the real parent." "How did that go?" "Dad was defensive. Sylvia was offended. But I didn't back down. I told them that you're my mother and you deserve respect, that they're welcome in my life but only if they treat you with the honor you deserve." And Dad admitted he'd been wrong. He said he'd taken credit for things he didn't do because it was easier than admitting he'd abandoned his son. He wants to apologize to you. I'm not ready to talk to him. I understand. But Mom, there's something else. Something I need to tell you. What? I quit Dad's company. I got a job at a different firm. I don't want to owe him anything anymore. I want to succeed on my own merit, not because I'm his son. I felt tears forming. "Vincent, that's a big step." "It's the right step. I've been letting Dad buy my loyalty. Letting his money make me forget what he did. But I don't want that anymore. I want to be the kind of man you raised me to be, the kind who works hard and values integrity over money. I'm proud of you for that." "Don't be proud yet. I have more to prove. Mom, I want to pay you back." "Pay me back for what?" "For everything. For the 32 years of raising me, for the student loans you took out, for the sacrifices you made. I've calculated it all." "Vincent, I don't want your money." "Please, let me do this. I've already paid off your student loans." "You what?" "The $89,000 you still owed. I paid them off. And I want to give you $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. Call it retroactive child support. Call it gratitude. Call it whatever you want. But please let me do this." I was crying now. "Vincent, you don't have to." "Yes, I do, because you're right. You sacrificed everything for me, and I've been taking it for granted, but not anymore. I want to take care of you the way you took care of me." I don't know what to say. Say you'll forgive me. Say you'll let me back into your life. Say you'll give me a chance to be the son you deserve. I thought about it, about the hurt, about the humiliation at the wedding, about 32 years of sacrifice that had been dismissed. But I also thought about the little boy I'd raised, the good heart underneath the polish and sophistication, the son who was finally seeing clearly. "I'll think about it," I said finally. I need time, Vincent. You hurt me deeply. And I need to know that this change is real, that you're not just feeling guilty because I made a scene at your wedding. It's real, I promise it's real, and I'll prove it to you, however long it takes. Over the next few months, Vincent did prove it. He visited me every Sunday. He took me to lunch, not hiding me in quiet restaurants but going to nice places where his friends might see us. He introduced me to people as my mother who raised me instead of glossing over my role in his life. He sent me flowers on Mother's Day with a card that said, "To the woman who sacrificed everything to raise me, I'm sorry it took me so long to appreciate you." He invited me to his new apartment, the one he'd gotten after moving out of the luxury place his father had helped him buy. It was smaller, more modest, but he'd earned it himself. "This is nice," I told him, looking around. "It's what I can afford on my actual salary, not Dad's money, mine. It feels good earning my own way, the way you taught me to." "I'm proud of you, Vincent." "Are you, after everything I did?" "I'm proud of who you're becoming, the man who's choosing integrity over comfort." "I learned that from you. I just forgot for a while." 6 months after the wedding, Vincent called with news. "Natasha and I are separating." I felt a pang of sadness. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." "I'm not. We rushed into marriage for the wrong reasons. I wanted to impress her family. She wanted someone successful and polished, but we don't actually love each other. Not really." "What will you do?" "Figure out who I am, without Dad's money, without trying to fit into a world I don't belong in. Just be myself." "That sounds like a good plan." "Will you help me? Help me remember who I am, who you raised me to be?" "Of course." 1 year after the wedding, Vincent and I had rebuilt our relationship. Not perfectly, there were still moments of hurt, still scars from the damage he'd done. But we were getting there. We were having coffee one Sunday when he said something that surprised me. "Mom, I've been thinking about the wedding, about what you did." "What about it?" "You were brave, standing up in front of all those people, refusing to be invisible, demanding to be seen." "I was desperate and hurt." "You were powerful. Mom, you taught me something that day. You taught me that silence isn't always the answer, that sometimes you have to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people don't want to hear it." "I almost didn't. I almost just left quietly." "But you didn't, and because you didn't, I woke up. I saw what I'd become, what I'd done to you. If you'd stayed silent, I might have kept going down that path forever." "So you're saying I did the right thing, exposing everything at your wedding?" "I'm saying you did what you needed to do, and I'm grateful, because it saved me from becoming someone I would have hated." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Vincent said, "I have something for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $251,000. "What's this?" "The money you got from selling your house. I want you to buy it back." "Vincent, I can't. The new owners are willing to sell. I already talked to them. They'll sell it back to you for what they paid. Mom, that house is your home. It's where you raised me. It's full of memories. You shouldn't have had to sell it." "I sold it to pay off your student loans." "Which I've now paid you back for, plus interest, plus a year of monthly payments. Mom, please, let me give you back your home." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw the boy I'd raised. The good heart, the generous spirit, the man who'd lost his way but found it again. "Okay," I said. "Okay, I'll buy back the house." He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. And I smiled back. Because sometimes, speaking up, even when it's painful, even when it causes chaos, is the only way to make people see you. I'd been silent for 32 years. I'd accepted being pushed aside, hidden away, erased from my own son's life. But at that wedding, when they tried to seat me in the back, I didn't complain. Until I did. And that changed everything. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 2 years after the wedding, my life looked completely different. I'd moved back into my house, the house where I'd raised Vincent, where every room held memories of his childhood. Vincent had insisted on paying for renovations, updating the kitchen and bathrooms, making it more comfortable for me. "Mom, you spent 32 years sacrificing for me. Let me do this." The house felt like home again, but more than that, it felt like a victory. I'd lost it because of Vincent's ingratitude, but I'd gotten it back because he'd finally learned to value me. Vincent visited every Sunday for dinner. He'd bring groceries and we'd cook together, just like we used to when he was young and we couldn't afford restaurants. "Remember when we used to make spaghetti 3 times a week because it was cheap?" he asked one evening, chopping vegetables in my kitchen. "I remember you complaining that you were tired of pasta." I was an ungrateful kid sometimes. "You were a kid. Kids complain, it's what they do." "But you never complained. You just kept working, kept providing, kept making sure I had what I needed." "That's what mothers do." He set down the knife and looked at me. "Not all mothers. Some mothers abandon their kids. Some mothers choose themselves over their children. You never did, and I took that for granted for way too long." "You're making up for it now." "Am I? Can I ever really make up for trying to erase you at my own wedding?" "Vincent, you've apologized, you've changed. You've shown me through your actions that you've learned. What more can I ask for?" "Forgiveness, complete forgiveness. Not just, I accept your apology, but real forgiveness where you don't hold it against me anymore." I thought about that. Did I still hold it against him? The hurt from that day, being told to sit in the back, watching Sylvia take my place, hearing Vincent thank everyone except me, it still stung when I remembered it. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "Some hurts take time to heal completely." "I understand, and I'll keep proving myself until you can forgive me fully." A month later, something unexpected happened. Gerald called me. "Beatrice, I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee?" I was surprised. I hadn't spoken to Gerald since the wedding. "Why?" "I need to apologize, properly. Not over the phone, please." We met at a small cafe near my house. Gerald looked older than I remembered, grayer, more tired. Wealth hadn't protected him from aging. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as we sat down. "What do you want, Gerald?" "To say I'm sorry, for everything. For leaving you with a 6-month-old baby. For never sending child support. For showing up years later and trying to buy Vincent's love. For taking credit for raising him when you did all the work. For letting Sylvia sit in your seat at the wedding. For all of it." I studied his face, looking for sincerity. "Why now? Why apologize 2 years later?" "Because Sylvia left me." Ah, there it was. He wasn't apologizing because he'd had a moral awakening. He was apologizing because he was lonely. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. I deserved it. She left me for the same reason I left you. I'm not a good partner. I'm selfish. I prioritize my own comfort over other people's needs. And now I'm alone and realizing that the only family I have is a son who barely tolerates me." "Vincent tolerates you." "Barely. He's civil. He takes my calls, but there's no warmth there, no real relationship. And I know that's my fault. I abandoned him when he was a baby. Then I showed up and tried to buy his love. Then I let him push you aside to make me look good. What kind of father does that?" "A bad one," I said bluntly. He flinched. "Yes, a terrible one, and now I'm paying the price. Vincent doesn't trust me, doesn't really love me, and I can't blame him." "So what do you want from me? Absolution? Permission to feel better about yourself?" "I want to ask you something. How did you do it? How did you raise a good man despite having no money and no help, despite me abandoning you?" "I loved him, that's all. I loved him more than I loved my comfort or my pride or my own needs. I put him first." "I never did that." "No, you didn't." "Can I ask you another question? Do you hate me?" I thought about it. Did I hate Gerald? For abandoning Vincent? For showing up years later and acting like a father? For sitting in the front row at the wedding while I was hidden in the back? "No," I said finally. "I don't hate you. I feel sorry for you." "Sorry for me. I'm wealthy, successful." "And alone. You have money, but you don't have love. You don't have real relationships. You don't have the satisfaction of knowing you sacrificed for someone who mattered. All you have is wealth, and wealth can't hold you when you're scared or celebrate with you when you're happy. Money is a poor substitute for love. Gerald's eyes were wet. I've made such terrible choices. Yes, you have, but it's not too late to make better ones. What should I do? Stop trying to buy Vincent's love. Stop trying to take credit for raising him. Just be honest. Admit what you did wrong. And if Vincent decides to have a relationship with you anyway, be grateful. But don't expect it. You don't deserve it. You're right, I don't. And Gerald, stop trying to compete with me. I raised Vincent. That's a fact. You didn't, also a fact. You can't change the past. You can only change how you behave now. I understand. We finished our coffee in silence. As we were leaving, Gerald said, Beatrice, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but thank you for raising our son, for being the parent I should have been. Vincent turned out well because of you, not despite you. I should have said that 2 years ago at the wedding. Yes, you should have. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, and I'm grateful, even if I don't deserve to be. 6 months later, Vincent had news. Mom, I'm seeing someone I really like. Tell me about her. Her name is Keisha. She's a teacher, 3rd grade. She's kind and funny and smart, and she's nothing like Natasha. What do you mean? She doesn't care about money or status or impressing people. She cares about her students and making a difference. She grew up with a single mom, too. Her dad left when she was little. She understands what you went through. She sounds wonderful. She is, and Mom, I told her everything. About how I treated you, about the wedding, about being ashamed of you, all of it. What did she say? She said any man who would treat his mother that way wasn't worth her time. I laughed. I like her already. So I had to prove to her that I'd changed, that I wasn't that person anymore. I showed her how I visit you every Sunday, how I paid back the student loans, how I quit Dad's company. She said she needed to see it for herself, so I invited her to Sunday dinner. Will you meet her? Of course. The next Sunday, Vincent brought Keisha to dinner. She was beautiful, warm smile, kind eyes, natural hair pulled back in a colorful head wrap. She hugged me like we were already family. Mrs. Coleman, I've heard so much about you. Vincent talks about you constantly. Good things, I hope. The best things. He told me you raised him alone, worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything. He said you're the strongest person he knows. I glanced at Vincent. He was smiling, proud, not embarrassed. I did what any mother would do. Not any mother. My mom did it too. Raised me and my 2 brothers alone after my dad left. I know how hard it is, how much you have to sacrifice. Mrs. Coleman, women like you and my mom, you're heroes. We had a wonderful dinner. Keisha was easy to talk to, genuine, down to earth. She told stories about her students that made us laugh. She asked about my life, my interests, my experiences raising Vincent. After dinner, as Vincent and Keisha were leaving, Keisha hugged me again. Thank you for raising such a good man. It took him a while to figure out who he wanted to be, but he got there, because you gave him a solid foundation. After they left, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that Vincent had finally found someone who valued what mattered. Someone who wouldn't make him ashamed of where he came from. 8 months later, Vincent called. Mom, I'm going to propose to Keisha, and I want to do it right this time. What do you mean? I want your blessing. I didn't ask for your blessing before I married Natasha. I just told you I was engaged and expected you to be happy about it. But this time, I'm asking, do I have your blessing to marry Keisha? I felt tears forming. Yes, sweetheart, you have my blessing. She's wonderful. She is, and Mom, when we get married, and I hope she says yes, you're sitting in the front row, where you belong. And I'm going to mention you in my vows. I'm going to tell everyone that you're the reason I'm the man I am today. No more hiding. No more being ashamed. I'm going to honor you the way I should have honored you the first time. Vincent, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because you deserve it. And because I want everyone to know that my mother is amazing, that she raised me alone, that she worked 3 jobs, that she sacrificed everything. I want to brag about you, Mom, the way I should have done all along. Keisha said yes to the proposal. The wedding was set for 6 months later. This time, everything was different. I was involved in every aspect of the planning. Keisha asked for my opinion on flowers, on the menu, on the ceremony. She insisted I help her choose her wedding dress. Mrs. Coleman, I want you there. My mom will be there too, both the mothers who raised us right. The invitation arrived. Beatrice Coleman and Gerald Coleman invite you to celebrate the marriage of their son Vincent Coleman to Keisha Johnson. My name was first, front and center. I cried when I saw it. The day of the wedding, I arrived at the church early. The usher, one of Vincent's friends, greeted me warmly. Mrs. Coleman, we've been waiting for you. You're in the front row, right side, the mother of the groom's seat. I sat down in the front row, the seat I should have had 2 years ago, the seat that was rightfully mine. Gerald arrived and was seated next to me. We nodded at each other, not friendly exactly, but civil. Sylvia wasn't there. She'd been invited but had declined. It's too awkward, she'd told Vincent. I don't belong there. For once, she'd been right. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, full of love. When the officiant asked Vincent to share his vows, he looked directly at me. Keisha, I promise to love you the way my mother loved me, unconditionally, sacrificially, putting you first even when it's hard. My mother raised me alone, worked 3 jobs, went without so I could have what I needed. She taught me what real love looks like, and I promise to give you that kind of love every day of our lives. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. During the reception, Vincent gave a speech. I want to thank everyone who's here today, especially my mother, Beatrice Coleman. Mom, 2 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I tried to hide you at my first wedding. I was ashamed of where I came from, ashamed of the fact that we'd been poor, ashamed that you didn't fit into the wealthy world I was trying to join. The guests were listening intently. But Mom did something that day that changed my life. She refused to be invisible. She stood up in front of 250 people and told the truth about who raised me, about the 3 jobs and the sacrifices and the student loans. She exposed my shame and my ingratitude, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because that moment forced me to look at who I'd become, someone who valued money over integrity, status over love, wealth over the woman who'd given me everything, and I hated who I'd become. So I changed. I quit my father's company. I got a job on my own merit. I paid Mom back for the student loans. I started visiting her every Sunday. I stopped being ashamed of where I came from and started being proud of the woman who raised me. He walked over to me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I'm sorry it took me so long to appreciate you. I'm sorry I tried to erase you. I'm sorry I let other people take credit for raising me. But I promise you, I will never be ashamed of you again. You're my hero. You're the reason I'm standing here today, and I love you. He pulled me up and hugged me, while the entire room applauded. Later, during the mother-son dance, Vincent whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it. You're my son. I'll never give up on you. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much I appreciate that." As we danced, I thought about the journey from that first wedding to this one, about being told to sit in the back, about walking out, about standing up and demanding to be seen, about the long, difficult process of rebuilding our relationship. It had been painful, messy, public, but it had been necessary. Because sometimes, the only way to make people see you is to refuse to be invisible, to speak up when they want you to be silent, to demand the respect you deserve instead of accepting whatever scraps they're willing to give. I'd been quiet for 32 years. I'd accepted being pushed aside, being hidden, being erased. But at that first wedding, when they tried to seat me in the back, I didn't complain. Not right away. I waited, I watched, I let them think they'd gotten away with it. And then, when the moment was right, I stood up and told the truth, all of it, in front of everyone who mattered. It cost me my relationship with Vincent, temporarily. It caused chaos and embarrassment and pain. But it also saved us both. It forced Vincent to see what he'd become. It forced him to choose between the wealthy world that demanded he be ashamed of me and the integrity I'd taught him to value. And he'd chosen integrity, chosen me, chosen to be the man I'd raised him to be. Now, 2 years later, at his second wedding, I wasn't hidden in the back. I was front and center, honored, valued, loved. Because I'd refused to accept less than I deserved. After the reception, as Keisha and Vincent were leaving for their honeymoon, Keisha pulled me aside. "Mrs. Coleman, thank you for raising the man I love, for teaching him about sacrifice and love and integrity. And thank you for showing him that speaking up matters, that refusing to be invisible matters. You would have done the same thing." "I hope so, but I hope I never have to." Vincent told me everything about that first wedding, about how they treated you, about how you finally stood up. "Mrs. Coleman, that took incredible courage. It took desperation and heartbreak. It took strength, and because you had that strength, Vincent learned to have it too. He learned to stand up for what's right instead of what's comfortable. That's the man I'm marrying, the man you raised." As I drove home that night, I thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the growth, the redemption. My phone buzzed, a text from Vincent. "Thank you for being there today, for being in the front row where you belong. I love you, Mom." I texted back, "I love you too, sweetheart. I'm proud of the man you've become." And I meant it, because Vincent had learned one of life's most important lessons, that the people who truly love you deserve to be honored, not hidden. That sacrifice deserves recognition, not erasure. That mothers who give everything deserve front row seats, not back row obscurity. It had taken a public confrontation at his first wedding to teach him that lesson. It had taken me refusing to be invisible, refusing to stay quiet, refusing to accept being treated like I didn't matter. But he'd learned, and we'd both grown. And now, finally, our relationship was built on honesty and respect instead of shame and silence. They'd tried to seat me in the back at my son's wedding. I didn't complain. Not until I did. And that changed everything. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.